The invitation arrived 3 months before the wedding. Cream-colored cardstock, embossed lettering. My mother's name linked with her fiancé's in elegant script. At the bottom, in smaller print, black tie formal. Ceremony and reception at the Riverside Grand Estate. I stared at that last line, my stomach knotting. The Riverside Grand Estate was a historic venue known for its dramatic staircases and multi-level layout. I'd been there once for a fundraising gala. The main ceremony hall was up 23 steps. The reception area required navigating 4 different floor levels. I called my mother that evening. "Mom, I saw the venue choice. The Riverside doesn't have accessible routes to most of the event spaces. Can we talk about?" "Vanessa, I've already put down a non-refundable deposit," she cut me off. "The venue is perfect. You'll be fine. We'll figure something out." I should have known then. But this was my mother, Patricia Hartley, founder and executive director of Accessible Futures, a nonprofit dedicated to disability rights and advocacy. For 12 years she'd built a reputation championing accessibility in public spaces. She'd given TED Talks about inclusion. She'd lobbied state legislators for stronger accessibility laws. Her organization received grants from the Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Education, and 3 major private foundations. Surely my own mother, the disability rights advocate, would ensure her daughter could attend her wedding. The weeks before the ceremony were a blur of my mother's planning meetings, dress fittings for my sister Diane, and increasingly tense phone conversations where I tried to discuss logistics. The venue manager says they have a service elevator that accesses the ceremony hall, Mom said during one call. "You can use that." "A service elevator, Mom? That means going through the kitchen and behind the scenes. I want to enter with the other guests." "Vanessa, I need you to be flexible. This is my day. Surely you can make some accommodations." The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who'd written a grant proposal titled "The Right to Full Participation, Ensuring Equal Access for All" was asking her wheelchair-using daughter to enter her wedding through the kitchen. "I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, a connective tissue disorder that affects my joints, muscles, and mobility. I'd been using a wheelchair full-time for 6 years since I was 23. My mother had publicly supported me through the diagnosis, even writing a blog post for her nonprofit about navigating disability as a family. That post had been shared thousands of times. People had commented about what an amazing, supportive mother she was. The wedding day arrived on a perfect Saturday in June. I'd driven 3 hours from my apartment, my wheelchair secured in my adapted van. The Riverside Grand Estate sprawled across manicured grounds, all white columns and flowering gardens. I parked in the accessible spot closest to the main entrance and made my way inside. The venue coordinator, a stressed-looking woman named Michelle, met me in the marble foyer. "You must be Vanessa," she said, glancing nervously at my wheelchair. "Your mother asked me to show you to the service entrance. The elevator is. I'd like to use the main entrance like everyone else," I said firmly. Michelle's expression turned pained. "The main entrance has the grand staircase. There's no ramp access to the ceremony level. Your mother was very specific about the photos she wanted on those stairs." Of course she was. I ended up waiting in a side room while other guests arrived, hearing their laughter and conversation echoing through the halls as they climbed those grand stairs. Through the doorway, I could see my mother's colleagues from Accessible Futures, the very people she worked with to fight for disability rights, walking past without a second thought about the accessible route. Finally, Michelle returned to escort me through the kitchen. Staff members cutting cake and arranging champagne flutes paused to stare as I wheeled through, following Michelle to the service elevator. It was freight-sized, smelling of cleaning chemicals. The ceremony hall was already filled when I emerged from the back entrance. I wheeled along the side wall to an empty space that had been left at the end of the back row. Not with family, not even close to the aisle. A spot clearly designated as where we'll put the wheelchair. My sister Diane was already seated in the front row with our aunt and uncle. She glanced back, saw me, and quickly looked away. The ceremony began. I watched my mother walk down the aisle in her ivory gown, radiant and smiling, surrounded by flowers and candlelight and 200 guests. She didn't look toward the back corner where I sat. The reception was worse. The cocktail hour took place in the garden, accessible enough, though the grass was soft and my wheels sank with every push. Then Michelle announced that dinner would be served in the main reception hall. Up another flight of stairs. We've arranged for staff to carry you, Michelle said quietly, appearing at my side. Excuse me. Your mother requested that we have staff members available to carry you in your wheelchair upstairs. She said it would be faster than waiting for the elevator. I'm not being carried, I said, my face burning. I'll use the elevator. The service elevator is on the other side of the building. By the time you get there, use it and navigate the back hallways. Dinner will be half over. Your mother really wanted you present for the toasts. I wanted to leave. I should have left, but this was my mother's wedding, and some part of me still hoped that she'd remember I was there, that she'd make space for me. I took the service elevator again, arriving at the reception hall just as salads were being served. My assigned seat was at a table in the far back corner, partially hidden behind a decorative column. I sat with distant cousins I barely knew, and one of my mother's college friends, who spent the entire meal talking about her Pilates instructor. Then came the photos. The photographer had set up near the floor-to-ceiling windows, using the golden evening light. My mother and her new husband posed first, then called up family members. Diane and her husband, our aunt and uncle, my mother's parents, my grandparents, who walked over carefully, mindful of their ages. Immediate family now, the photographer called. Let's get mom with her daughters. I started to wheel forward. My mother's eyes locked on mine, and her expression hardened into something I'd never seen directed at me before. She walked over quickly, her smile fixed but her voice low and sharp. You're going to ruin the photos. What? The wheelchair? It's going to be in every picture. This is my wedding, Vanessa. These photos are going to be displayed in my home, shared with everyone. Can't you just stand up for a few pictures? The reception hall had gone quiet. Guests at nearby tables turned to look. Mom, I can't stand unassisted. You know that. You can stand with support. I've seen you do it. Hold on to Diane. Hold on to the window frame. I don't care. Just stand up for the family photos. My hands were shaking on my wheelchair's armrests. I use a wheelchair because I need it. You know this. You've given speeches about this exact kind of ableism. Don't lecture me about disability rights at my own wedding. My mother hissed. Either stand up for the photos or leave. I'm not having my wedding album ruined by a wheelchair in every shot. The words hit like a physical blow. Around us, guests had pulled out their phones. I could see screens lifted, recording. Patricia, maybe we should. Her new husband started. No, my mother cut him off. I have worked too hard for today to be perfect. I am not compromising my vision, because she won't make a simple accommodation. Mom, Diane said softly. Maybe we could do some photos with Vanessa seated and some standing. Stand up or leave. My mother repeated, her voice carrying across the silent reception hall. Those are your options, Vanessa. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't process that my mother who had built a career on disability advocacy, was calling my wheelchair an embarrassment at her wedding, in front of 200 people. That's when my uncle stepped forward. Come on, we'll help you out. Before I could protest, he and two of my cousins had gripped my wheelchair. They lifted me, chair and all, carrying me toward the exit. What are you doing? I managed. Your mother wants you out of the reception photos. My uncle said, we'll take you downstairs until the photos are done. They carried me out of the reception hall, past staring guests, past the photographer standing with his camera lowered. They carried me down a hallway, to another service elevator. There's a sitting room in the basement level. One of my cousins said, we'll take you there. You're removing me from my mother's wedding. I asked, disbelief making my voice shake. Just temporarily, my uncle said, until the photos are finished. Then you can come back up. The basement sitting room was clearly a storage area that had been hastily converted into a waiting space. Folded chairs lined one wall. The air smelled musty. They wheeled me in and left me there, closing the door behind them. I sat in the dim basement room, my mother's wedding reception happening 2 floors above me, and cried. I don't know how long I'd been there when my phone started buzzing. Text after text, notifications from social media, messages from friends. Is this video real? OMG, Vanessa, are you okay? Your mom really said this. I opened Twitter, now X, with trembling hands. The first video had already been viewed 47,000 times. It showed my mother clearly, in her wedding dress, saying the wheelchair. It's going to be in every picture. Either stand up for the photos or leave. I'm not having my wedding album ruined by a wheelchair in every shot. There were more videos, different angles of the same scene. My uncle and cousins carrying me out, close-ups of my face, as I was removed from the reception. Guests' shocked reactions. Someone had added text overlay. Disability rights advocate tells wheelchair-using daughter to stand up or leave at wedding. Another Patricia Hartley, founder of Accessible Futures nonprofit, has daughter removed from wedding reception. The videos were spreading faster than I could track. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Local news accounts were picking it up. Disability rights activists were commenting, sharing, expressing outrage. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Miss Hartley, this is Catherine Chen, from the Department of Health and Human Services, Office for Civil Rights. I've been made aware of some concerning videos circulating online regarding an incident at a wedding earlier today. Can you confirm you're the individual in those videos? I confirmed it, my voice barely steady. Miss Hartley, I need to inform you that we're opening an investigation into Accessible Futures, the nonprofit organization run by Patricia Hartley. Your mother's organization receives significant federal funding, over $340,000 annually, from HHS alone. Those funds come with strict requirements about organizational practices and the personal conduct of leadership, particularly regarding compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act and disability rights principles. An investigation. The videos show Ms. Hartley engaging in discriminatory behavior toward a disabled individual, you her daughter, while at a public event. She demanded you stand despite your disability, called your mobility device an embarrassment, and you were physically removed from the venue. This raises serious questions about whether Accessible Futures is operating in good faith with its stated mission, and whether Ms. Hartley is fit to lead a federally funded disability advocacy organization. Catherine Chen's voice was professional but not unkind. I want to be clear, you're not in any trouble, but we will need a full statement from you about the incident. We'll also be reviewing Accessible Futures grant applications, financial records, and organizational practices. If we find evidence that Ms. Hartley misrepresented her organization's values, or that she's violated federal non-discrimination requirements, there will be consequences, ranging from funding suspension to criminal fraud charges. I gave her my statement over the phone, still sitting in that basement room. By the time we finished, the original video had been viewed over 200,000 times. The door opened. My mother stood there, still in her wedding dress, her makeup smudged from crying. Vanessa, please, you have to tell them to take down the videos. My phone won't stop ringing. The board chair from Accessible Futures just called. Our donors are threatening to pull funding. Please, this is all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. I was stressed, it was my wedding day. I just wanted nice photos. You're making this into something. It's not. You had them carry me to the basement and lock me away, I said quietly. At your wedding, while running a disability rights nonprofit. I run that nonprofit. I've dedicated my life to helping people with disabilities. One bad moment doesn't erase 12 years of advocacy. Mom, you discriminated against your own disabled daughter at your wedding, while accepting government money to fight discrimination. Federal investigators are involved now. The videos show exactly who you are when it's inconvenient to practice what you preach. She left without another word. Over the next 3 weeks, the investigation unfolded publicly. The videos had gone so viral that mainstream media picked up the story. Disability rights organizations issued statements condemning my mother's actions. Her TED Talk was removed from the official platform. 3 major donors to Accessible Futures publicly withdrew their support. The Department of Health and Human Services suspended all federal funding to Accessible Futures pending the investigation's completion. The Department of Education followed suit. Without that funding, which represented 73% of the organization's annual budget, operations ground to a halt. The investigation revealed more than just the wedding incident. Grant applications where my mother had described Accessible Futures' commitment to centering disabled voices and experiences. Tax documents showing she paid herself $127,000 annually to run the nonprofit. Blog posts she'd written about fighting ableism, shared thousands of times, while privately telling me my wheelchair was an embarrassment. The Americans with Disabilities Act lawyers came next, not representing me, but investigating whether the Riverside Grand Estate had violated ADA requirements by not providing accessible routes to all public areas during an event. The venue settled quickly, agreeing to renovate and add proper accessibility features. My mother's nonprofit dissolved 4 months after the wedding. The board voted to shut down operations rather than try to rebuild with a tarnished reputation and no funding. My mother lost her job, her professional credibility, and most of her social circle. I received dozens of messages from people with disabilities, thanking me for exposing the hypocrisy. Several said they'd experienced similar treatment from family members, who claimed to be supportive, but refused to make actual accommodations. My mother tried to reach out several times. Emails about healing our relationship and moving past this. I didn't respond. Because the truth is, the wedding wasn't the beginning of her ableism. It was just the first time it was captured on video and shared widely enough that she faced consequences. The woman who built a career on disability advocacy couldn't handle having a disabled daughter at her wedding photos. That video showed the world what I'd been living with privately for 6 years. The disappointment in her eyes every time I used my wheelchair, the suggestions that I try harder to walk, the constant minimizing of my limitations. The federal government recovered $180,000 in misused grant funds. My mother's marriage ended within a year. Her husband filed for divorce, citing the stress of the public scandal and his discomfort with what the videos revealed about her character. I moved to a new city, started a job with a disability rights legal clinic, and began writing about the intersection of family dynamics and ableism. I speak now about how discrimination often comes from those closest to us, wrapped in concern, or couched in special occasions, that supposedly justify asking disabled people to minimize themselves. And I never delete those videos when they resurface every few months, going viral again, with each new wave of internet users discovering them, because they're proof that advocacy, without personal accountability, is just performance. And sometimes the people who claim to fight hardest for our rights are the ones who need to be fought against. My wheelchair isn't an embarrassment, but my mother's hypocrisy should be.